Welcome to another G4 Guitar Teacher Hangout. My name is David Hart. I'm going to start off today. I've got a question from a teacher who is not present with us today, but he's asked about a student, and we have covered this topic, but we're going to go to it a little bit differently, on a different angle today. He's just talking about a student that won't practice, and the parent doesn't seem to be helping the cause either, and he wants to know how can he his real question is, how can I sack the student? In other words, it's nothing that he's doing is working to get the student to practice, and he doesn't want the student to damage his reputation. But also, I know the feeling. For me, it wasn't reputation that I was worried about. It was more I just didn't feel comfortable with a student who wouldn't practice, and there's just a tolerance. I think we all have a tolerance about what we're willing to accept as teachers, and so we'll talk about that one. Paul, did you have a topic or a question, something you wanted to cover today?
I've got my open day on Saturday, so it'd be good to perhaps just shoot some ideas around for that. I'm doing a poster, just started it this morning, so it might be good to get some ideas on that and just kind of, discuss that.
Okay, cool. Open day ideas, fantastic. Yeah, make it a huge one, because there are some things that I always go back to our classic open day, the one that was the biggest success, and this was before G4. I never did any open days with G4, but prior to G4 we did a couple of them, and we signed in 100 students, just over 100 students on the day. So yeah, they can be huge, but that was something pretty special, and we did run newspaper ads when newspapers were very much the thing. That's where people got their news from, and we also had the media behind us, if you like. We had a couple of celebrities in the area. We had a couple of star football players. We even had the head of the NRL rugby league was one of our the NRL top referee, and he was very well known at the time, and yeah, he was one of our students. So we had kind of quite a reputation in the area as being a place to learn. So the open day was a bit more than just your average open day. Okay, so Bob, did you have a topic, a question, something to share tonight? This morning?
Not really, no. I went out and delivered flyers the other day. Just about killed myself.
Good, that's a good sign.
I took a pedometer with me, and I did 20,000 steps, over 20,000 steps.
Twice the daily recommendation.
Huh?
Twice the daily recommendation.
Yeah, and I paid for it the next day. But yeah, it's good.
Well, you did two days in one, so therefore, yeah, you got to pay the next day. You got to pay back the body.
Unfortunately, I picked an area that was all uphill, so that wasn't good.
That makes a difference. Yeah, not every step is the same. Yeah.
I don't really have any questions at the moment, but I may have some as we go on. You
want some good ointment for your feet, or some remedy, something like that?
No, I just took some ibuprofen, and that seemed to help.
Cool.
All right.
Excellent. All right, no worries. Ben, what would you like to talk about today?
I guess it's kind of similar to what Ben was saying. I've got a couple of, I think, 5-year-olds, maybe 4 and a 5-year-old, who've had 2 intro lessons, and they're really, really manic. But I think that's fine. I've had to split them up now anyway. They did their lessons back to back, so I put them together. And obviously that first hour was a very long hour from the second hour. Because we weren't talking about the practice schedule, I could split it up into let's do some strumming, let's do some marching in time, and they seemed fine for the whole hour, even though they were just incredibly loud and incredibly manic. But obviously that's fine. The problem is that the parents of both of them, in the first lesson, we took 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour, talking about practice and going over the practice schedule. And of course I was talking about how we're looking for practice every day. I'm not necessarily expecting them to do 10 minutes every single day. They can get 1 minute on the days when it's problematic. I love that from Paul's webinar, getting that, what would you call it, a micro habit, Paul. So I've really taken that to heart on the people who are reluctant in the first place. But they only seemed reluctant for the first 2 minutes, and then the rest of that 25-minute chat, they were saying, yeah, brilliant, practice every day. Because the kids were saying, yeah, every day. How much? 100 minutes. 5 minutes, 10 minutes will be fine, no worries. And then they come in the next week, and the parents just say, we're not going to practice every day. And I was like, I know it's hard to find the time. Might we be able to just do what? We're not doing it. And I thought, well, if you're that angry about the fact that you have to practice, then I don't know how I can help you.
So who's angry? The parent?
Parents just seemed, I don't know if they were annoyed that the kids hadn't just done the practice themselves.
Yeah.
But we took 25 minutes over the practice in the first lesson, so I'd made that very clear that they'd need to help.
Yeah.
You know all the stuff we talk about. If I take 25 minutes to talk about that stuff, they know that they've heard it.
Yeah, the message is there.
Surprised.
Yeah. Okay. So it's beyond the information. It's getting them to do it that we're talking about here. It's actually how do we get people to take action on what we're saying. And
it's also just, why are they angry?
Why are they angry? Okay, good. Yep. Okay. So let me just sort of think of this in a topic. What is it about the practice that people are not getting, so to speak? And I think that's it. Anger often is defensiveness. People become defensive because they feel. There was an incident in one of the schools last week where the teacher, and he's a very nice guy. I know the teacher. We've spoken many times, and I know he would be very tactful about the way that he spoke to the parent. But the parent just literally told him to get out of his face and stop telling him what to do. He took great offence to him telling him to help his son with his practice. So there are and as I explained to him, because he was quite upset about it, I said it's a defensiveness from the parent, because the way that he's taking this is that you're almost saying to him you're not a good parent, and even though you didn't intend that way, and I know that you didn't intend that way, sometimes we do walk a fine line between parented advice and how to help your child learn the guitar.
Yeah, I think that must have been it, because I don't think I said anything particularly that would have made them think that, but if they already were on a bit of a defensive attitude because they've come in thinking we haven't done it every day, and I say, yeah, these 3 days are great, what happened on these other days? They're already gearing up to go, well, it's not my fault.
It's not my fault. You don't know what it's like. You're not with these kids all the time. Yeah, it's very easy to overstep that line, and we'll give it a name. We'll call it the fine parent line, just because it really is. We have to be careful that we're not dishing out parenting advice, but at the same time, we need to let them know that there's a requirement if they want to succeed. School teachers face this all the time. What we go through, it's a common thing for school teachers, where they often bring in the parents for meetings and sort of say, well, look, your child's not doing their homework, this, that, and the other. But I will say the difference with a school teacher is they do have the kids for quite a lot longer than we do, so they can get things done. You've got kids for 25 hours a week of classroom time. You can get a lot more done than in half an hour a week. So. Okay, cool. So let's go through those 3 topics in as much depth as we can. I think that it's going to be a good one. So I'll start off here with the practice, and how do we get a student, and it doesn't have to just be children, it can be adults as well, any age, a student who's not practicing comes in with the excuses all the time. I always take it from a point, I always get myself in a mindset that I need to be empathetic to the person. I need to see it from their point of view. I need to feel how they feel and talk through it. And to sort of build that empathy, a good thing to do is talk about yourself rather than talk about them. And that's one of the things that can very quickly soften a situation and make people much more receptive when you actually relate to their situation. And I might do it, for an example, I did many different ways of doing it, but just as one example, I might say, look, I know how tough it is when you're first starting out. I'm learning Japanese at the moment, and boy, most nights I don't want to do it. I don't want to sit down there and go through it. It really, I'd rather be doing something else. And I will talk to them about my particular struggle sometimes. Just depends on the student, of course. I don't want to overdo it, and I don't want to be patronising in any way. But what I want to do is build a little bit of empathy with them and say, look, I understand how it is, and I know that it's going to be a struggle at times. Then comes the but, and the but always is, but I don't want to see you, waste your time or your money. I know that you've got the potential. I know you can do it. It's just a matter of getting that practice time in. So talk to me. Do it in a sympathetic way when you're talking to them, and say, look, talk to me. What's going on? Tell me what's happening at home. And people are much more receptive, I find. I always found when you do it from a more caring point of view, where you really care about them and you really want them to do well, and that you're in their corner for them, that you're fighting for them, that it's not you coming down on them. Why didn't you do your practice? And so I would get students who would go either way, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to polarize them, and I would get those students who would really appreciate that care factor, and then they would do the practice. They would actually step up their game because they didn't want to let me down, because they knew that it meant as much to me, or more sometimes to me, than it did to them, and not from a point of view of this is going to affect my reputation, that I really want you to do well. I really believe in you. I don't want to see you not succeed on guitar. So they would feel that, they would pick up on that care factor, or they would go the other way where they didn't want to, again, didn't want to disappoint me and realize that they just didn't have what it took, and so they didn't want to continue to let me down for a good reason, for the reason that I just explained, that they knew that I cared a lot about what was going on. And I guess I was very fortunate because I learned this from my teachers, and I've used them as examples many times. So we're talking about my drum teacher, my school teacher, and my guitar teacher. These three particular teachers were very caring individuals who made me feel like they really believed in me, and they really wanted me to do well, and it really mattered to them that I did well, and and they would build my confidence and those kind of things. So I never wanted to turn up not practicing. And there were weeks when I did turn up and hadn't practiced. During the week, it's easier to, don't worry about it, I'll wait till the day before and I'll work on those exercises the teacher told me to do. But then I would feel really bad, and same thing. I wasn't any different to any other kid. Make excuses, but I knew the excuses weren't true. And I think once you go through that experience yourself and you understand, then you understand the students. You know where they're coming from. You know their excuses, and you know that they are not wanting to honestly say to you, well, I felt lazy, I just want to sit on the couch, I prefer to watch The Simpsons or do something else. They don't really want to say that to you. So the question here is for Ben, which I want to get to, is how can you really get a student to that edge of where they're going to either leave, or because I don't, as I've mentioned before, I never sacked a student. At no point did I ever sack a student. What I would do would have the conversation to the student about the fact that I don't want to see them let themselves down, or I don't want to. It's pointless to come every week. So I wouldn't say don't come anymore. I would just make that very clear that it's pointless coming every week if you're not going to practice. But I think what I did more than anything, which really I think was the difference with my teaching that I've seen to probably the majority of teachers, is that I made it very clear from day one that practice was compulsory. And I think what happens to a lot of teachers is they're very soft in the beginning. They're trying to make friends. They're trying to be liked, and they're so worried about this aspect of being liked that they're not strict enough, but not in a nasty way. And there's a real art to this. So I'm not saying that it's easy, and it took me years to develop it. And I had good mentors as well, of course. And I came from a sales background, and in sales, you learn that skill of reading people. Sales is probably more about reading someone's behavior than it is about what you do. Just knowing what they're thinking or where they're going to go allows you to know what to do in the next moment. It doesn't mean that I'm magical in any way. It's a bit like a magician, in the sense that a magician knows how to distract you over here while they do something here. And that's the trick of many magicians, is they distract you while they do whatever they do. And it's the same in selling, and I'm not saying selling is deceptive, but selling is the art form of selling, if you like, is the ability to understand and know what someone's thinking, your opponent, so to speak, so then you are able to lead them in the direction that you want them to go. And if you're doing something that's like learning guitar, they want to be able to play guitar. I don't know anyone who has learnt guitar and regrets it. I haven't heard any, I've never heard someone say to me, look, when I was a child I was forced to play guitar and I hate it, and I hate anyone who plays guitar. I haven't heard that before. Maybe you've come across it, but I haven't. So the idea of getting them to learn guitar in whatever way possible without it being, you know, totally deceptive or wrong, so to speak, but doing it in a way where you can motivate and get people to do the things that they need to do the practice, I think is a skill that you need to develop if you really want to get most students to practice. But I'll come back to that bit about the beginning, the relationship you build from the start. And this is not just with teaching guitar, this is with anybody. Any relationship that you build tends to really cement itself in the early stages. And this is not just me. I know some of you guys have had some experience with psychology. You would know these principles, that those people create you know, biases, they get primed, all these terms, where they actually see you in a certain light based on the way that they saw you in the beginning or their early experiences, first impressions. So when you come to running, I can apply this to group as well, teaching classes and teaching groups, the tone that you set from the beginning is generally where it's going to sit most of the time. That's where they're going to kind of come back to. That's where they decide what kind of class you're in. You go back to your school days, you remember those first classes with a teacher. I remember distinctly entering high school and meeting those teachers for the first time, and you got a sense of what the class was like in that very first class. You knew what you were going to get away with and what you weren't going to get away with fairly quickly. And the tone of the class, you could be with that same bunch of kids in one class, or in two different classes. In one class, they're just totally off the wall, and you know, the other class, they're really well behaved and all sitting up straight and listening and attentive. And it came down to the teacher and the tone the teacher set from the very beginning. And the same applies to your students. If you have students who aren't practicing, it generally comes back to what you set up in the very beginning. Did they think you were serious about the practice? Did they think that you were the kind of person that they could get away with excuses with? Or were you the kind of person who they knew they weren't going to be able to put it over you? That's the question. So can I just ask Ben, if I could just come back to you with those students that you've got, 5-year-olds, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how long have you had them for?
They've had 2 intros, and their third will be sometime this week.
Okay, all right. So tell me about the first lesson. What happened in that first lesson?
First lesson, sat down. They had ukulele and guitar, but there was one of those kind of toy guitars that if you start tuning the string up, it instantly starts tuning itself back down.
Okay. So let's just so we don't get too off track. And sorry, I'm going to sort of push you on this. Tell me about their behaviour. What was their behaviour like when they first walked in the class? Were they quiet, rowdy? What was it like?
Well, one of them was 15 minutes late, so we sat down, had a bit of a chat, did some strumming, maybe a little bit of picking, but not worrying about technique. Just, you know, getting used to holding a pick, touching the guitar, that stuff. And then the other one arrived, and instantly the energy levels were like, woo, oh my god, because they're in the same class at school. So they're used to mucking around together. And
okay, and what did you do at that point? When you saw the energy level go?
Well, they sat down, and obviously I wasn't saying stop making noise. I'm fine with them making noise. They came in, hello, well, no names, hello, what's your face, hello, what's your face? Sat down. Everyone kind of got arranged, so we went through putting the chairs up, not chairs up, putting the footstools up in the right places, making sure that you're sitting nice and straight. And they were not chatting to each other, but, you know, a comment every minute or two to each other. And that was fine. It wasn't disturbing it, so that was no problem. But then I would be asking questions and getting them to answer one or then the other, and then choosing who I wanted the answers. And they were generally answering, but towards the end of the lesson, they would start just shouting it out. But I already, as I mentioned, I've already explained the rules, so I'd remind them of the rules. The only thing that would make me worried about that was that they couldn't remember the rules ever. They remembered the hand up one, kind of 80% of the
Do you
time.
have them written up somewhere where you can sort of point to it?
Which does make it hard, but they. Well, I know that at least one of the two can't read, so that wouldn't help that much. Something that does make it a little bit more awkward is that I think the one that can't read is the English one, and one of them is French. And they do speak English a bit, but it's a little tricky.
Okay. Okay. So when it came to, was there a point there where you started to see the behaviour got a little bit in that first class? Was there any sign that the behaviour was getting a little bit too high?
Yeah, could be. Although it kind of depends, because I mean, parents step in way before I step in most of the time, because I am happy with a certain level of kind of noise.
Can I say that there's your first problem? As soon as parents start stepping in, that's a sign that you're not controlling the class. Okay, I know it's a hard one to sometimes to accept, but when parents feel they need to step in, and they might not even be thinking that consciously, but if a parent needs to step in, then it means that they think they need to bring their child back into line. And so that's a sign for you.
Before, but most of the time, I don't really want to. Because maybe it's something I could do with body language or something to make the parents know that don't worry, this is fine. But they're stepping in at a point where I really wouldn't. That it's not necessary. They're kind of just. They might fidget a little bit in the seat and they're like, "Oh, sit still." No, calm down. We're in a friendly environment here. There's no need to shout at them for every little thing. I want your child to be relaxed.
The way they go about it, and I do hear what you're saying, well, the way the parent might go about it, that might just be their reactive way, and you know, they may be being a little bit over the top, and I do understand that. But at the same time, there's that thing where the parent wants you to have a certain level of control in the class. In other words, they don't want to see their child not paying attention, not learning, not getting, you know, in their minds the value out of the lesson, I guess. So I would still take it as a sign, but you definitely don't need to mimic their behaviour. You don't have to shout at the kids. And this is where sometimes we get a little bit, you know, we misunderstand what it means. Discipline often has a bad connotation to it, but it doesn't need to. It's simply about, you know, when we talk about self-discipline, we think of it as a good thing. When we talk about disciplining others, it comes across as a bad thing. But young children,
it gets better.
What's that? Sorry.
Martial arts is the right kind of discipline.
Yeah. It's about teaching them to you know, have the self-control in your class, because young kids don't have as much self-control as we do, and they will also, you know, give them an inch, they'll take the mile. That's just the nature of them. I've seen, you know, I've been around kids most of my life, and you can see the energy go up and up and up. They all start, you know, next thing you got a whole room of screaming kids. If you just kept letting it go, so you really have to.
I definitely have that problem. At the moment, I let them have the inch, and then if they start taking a second step towards the next inch, I go, nope. We can do something, we can have fun, but there are certain rules in this classroom. For example, rule 1, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Look, I think, you know, I think overall from talking to you, probably what you're talking about is one particular class here and a couple of kids, and just looking for, you know, some recommendations on it. So I know you don't have a problem, and I'm really just talking for anyone who's listening in, because there are teachers out there who do have a problem.
Keep going down this route next time we discuss this, because this is definitely, as you know, I never have discipline problems. So if it ever comes up, this is the thing I'm totally unprepared for.
Yeah. And you're going to get that occasional child who is just doesn't have boundaries, or the boundaries are very wide, you know, in their life. So when they walk into your group, they're not used to having, you know, those boundaries that you might be putting into place. But, you know, my main thing, and really the main takeaways here for, you know, when we're talking about a class and a group discipline, is I always took the approach where I was always nice, I was always friendly. I never came across as this mean, you know, kind of guy, but I came across as I was strict, that I didn't give them much room to move, and really from the beginning I made that very clear in my class, guys, and I even, you know, have this in my mind. It's like, guys, The reason I need you to follow the 2 rules is because I need everyone here to focus and learn. This is what we're here to do. We're here to learn to play guitar. So let's keep our mind on that. And as soon as they would break one of those rules, which was almost always within the next 60 seconds, especially with young kids, you would just stop, guys, I need to go over the 2 rules again. Rule number 1, rule number 2. So I would really push those rules very early and make it very clear, my body language, my tone, I'd have it written up as well. So I would make it very clear from the beginning that these were the 2 rules. And once I could see that they understood the 2 rules, then I would loosen up a little bit. Then I would give them a little bit of room to move. But I would at the same time let them know that I'm still a nice guy. I'm not coming down on you with the hard rules because I'm Mr. Bad Guy. I'm actually, the way that you do that obviously is by giving them lots of encouragement, giving them positive reinforcement, and they love that. Kids love that positive reinforcement, but you've got to keep them on track as well.
Yeah. Do you mind just giving an example of the tone you'd use the first time you're kind of calling them up on the rules? So not the first time you explain it, just the first time you call it up, and then maybe like the 5th time you call it up.
Sure, yeah. I would say, guys, so I don't isolate necessarily someone the first time.
Yeah.
Let's just say that I've got 3 or 4 kids there, and one of them is playing something that he or she's not supposed to play. I'd say, guys, stop for me, please. Everybody stop. Everybody quiet. That means you too, Tommy. Okay, everybody quiet? Great. I just need to go over the 2 rules again. Okay, 2 rules, guys. Who can remember rule number 1? Anybody? And I'd see if someone can remember rule number 1. Okay, George, what's rule number 1? Great. Anyone rule number 2? Mary, what's rule number 2? Great. Is everybody got that? Everybody remember that now? Good. So rule number 1, we only play what and when I ask you to. And rule number 2, if you've got something to say, put your hand up. All right, let's do it, guys. Excellent. Here we go. So, and I would do that again, and if we're all broken again, guys, let's stop again. We've got to go over the rules again. We really need to get these rules right before we can move forward. So I would do that, and I can honestly say it would rarely take more than 3 or 4 times of doing that.
Well, that next time you got slightly more insistent, but you never go into a stern voice. It's still on the usual.
I don't think I really had to. I think that there were certainly a few moments where I would, the nice guy face would drop, and let's just say that it went to the extreme. I would say, all right, guys, I'm going to give you one last warning, and I'm very serious now. If anybody plays when they're not supposed to, rule number 1, then I'm going to ask you to stand up, and I'm going to get you to sit outside. Do you understand? Is everybody clear about that? So, and then you would see their body language change, but that rarely was necessary. I can honestly say that was rare as hen's teeth. So yeah, it's just, but it was there if I needed it.
I mean, it does sound good. Good to just, because I don't want to have to get more stern and more loud. Yeah. So I need to have an option that's the next step without being that, and it's good to have that before I have to use it.
Yeah. Look, I mean the stages to me are number 1 to be very strong about what you want, what you expect, be very clear, without being nasty. They don't know you yet, and kids generally, and you've got to remember, if you've done the intro with them as well, if that's been your role within your school, which it is, then you really need to make that intro, make them clear in the intro what you expect from your groups, because it's easier to do it in the intro before they get in the group. Then they know what it's about. They know what your rules are. And what I would do is, even in the very first class, I was still treating it the same way. I would just say, to who was it? Say, Tommy, g'day, Tommy, come and sit down for me, mate. Take a seat there. All right. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to get you to go through this. But after I've had a little bit of a chat with him at the beginning, then I'll say, okay, what I need you to do is I'm going to ask you to follow me each time. So I'll show you what to do first, and then I'll ask you to do it each and every time. Okay. So what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to play anything until I ask you to play. So and so I would already be setting it up right there and then. And as soon as I could see Tommy starting to fiddle, I'd say, Tommy, I need you to wait until I ask you to play. Okay. Yeah. So I would be really conditioning them for the group early on, and that may be something that you've got to be aware of as well, is conditioning them. And I think that's really why I had very few problems, is because, and look, I had problems early on in the early years. I didn't know how to work with kids any better than anybody else, but I gradually worked it out. And where I learned it from, and I think I've told you this before, I learned it from watching parents. I could see the way that different parents worked with their children. I could see which were the good children, which were the children that messed around and challenged. I could see that the parents who were very calm and in control all the time, and I could see them, and I would talk to them a lot. A lot of the time, I was running music school, so I would be there and the parents would be waiting around. I'd be chatting to them, and I would say, compliment their kids as you do, and say, look, Charlie's a great kid. He's always happy, and he always follows what we ask him to do. He practices all the time. What are you doing at home with him? And they would give you clues. They would tell you things. Oh, we're very strict about certain things, and you just get a feel and really learn from parents. That's where I learned my craft or trade, if you like. So.
Well, I think what you're saying, David, is, and that's my experience as a parent and as a manager, is if you set out what your expectations are of someone early on and then reinforce that, generally, for most cases, people will do their best to rise to that expectation.
That's exactly it. Spot on.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's being clear. And that's often it comes down to us not being clear enough. We didn't, we were a bit,
or being inconsistent while we say one thing about what we expect and then not reinforcing that when we need to.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I can give you a prime example. A parent will say to their child, "You do that again, and I'll take it off you." Child does that bad behaviour again. One more time, I told you, if you do it again, I'll take it off you. And then they do it a third time, and the parent goes, "Oh, well, that's it, I'm taking it off you." And the child goes, "Ah," and screams and carries on. All right, just settle down, just stop doing what you're doing.
The parent's response escalates and is out of proportion to what's going on, and all hell breaks loose. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not consistent. They're not calm. They're not in control. So
if you set the expectations early, reinforce them, and then are consistent with the enforcement, you shouldn't really have a problem. I mean, occasionally you will, but most likely
there's some. But humans are not 100% predictable, but most of the time, I can say 99% of the time you won't have a problem. If it's exactly as you said there, Bob, well summed up. You basically lay down the agreement. Here's the contract. Here's what we're going. This is the way our relationship is going to work from here on in. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you don't listen to them as well. And the thing is about any relationship is both parties should be laying down what they expect. It shouldn't be a one-way street. And they're here to learn guitar, and we're here to teach them, and we want to create the best environment for that. And that could mean showing the parents quite clearly that you're in charge, that they don't need to get involved. They can sit on the sidelines for that half an hour.
And if you show them that, they're going to be more likely to stick around. If they know that you're in control of the classroom and they don't have to get involved, and
exactly.
Those are kind of, for some of them, it would be a break for them. So,
exactly. Parents are really responsive to it, and parents are very quick to recognize the difference between a good teacher and an average teacher. Because that's what their main concern is, especially parents who are, maybe the stay-home mother or father who's looking after the child. Their main thing they're looking for, I know my wife, her main concern in life is who's teaching my daughter and what are they teaching her. That's her main concern. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's jump into the open day and talk about.
Can I just ask one thing, David? Could you?
Yeah, sure.
Go up on Wednesday? Did you say this Wednesday is on? Next Wednesday, isn't it?
This Wednesday's on. Next Wednesday's not. Yeah.
Cool. Because when we were saying in the intro is when you want to do this, I have been doing an intro, and as I said, these guys are in the intro. But I've had a bit of difficulty managing to actually handle when you book two people back to back in a way that isn't just they're all in the room at once and it turns into an hour lesson, because that doesn't work with these kids. It's too long. The first one was okay, I managed to make it work. The second one we did the marching and everything, split it up. but I made sure that at the end of that second lesson, they knew that we were going to have to do separate lessons after that. And I didn't treat it like a surprise. I just said, now that we've done this general stuff, we can start being a bit more specific, which will work better in the individual lessons.
So you did the intro, the first lesson together for an hour for 2 kids, did you?
Yep.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So by your time, the risk that was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, anything's manageable. There's no, even though we have a particular way of doing things, it doesn't mean that our way is the only way. There's many ways to do it. But it's just that if it's not your normal routine, not what you're used to, then you're not ready for it. It's like telling a football player they've got to play a 3-hour game when they're used to playing 80-minute games. They're not conditioned for 3-hour games. So yeah, you've got to be up for it. But if you condition for it and you do it all the time, then yeah, you won't have. It's like school teachers are conditioned to teach, 30 hours a week in classroom situations with bunches of kids. That's what they do. They prepare for it. The environment's set up for it. The material, everything. Yeah. So okay, cool. So open day, Paul. Your open day. What day is it exactly?
It's this coming Saturday.
It's coming Saturday. Tell us what you've got prepared. What can people expect?
Wow. It's been quite successful. I've had 36 people sign up, so booked in for lessons. I've got half an hour groups of 4, 15-minute gap in between. What they're expecting is a free lesson. I'm going to have food and drink in the waiting room, so they can obviously kids can go in there while we're signing people up. So I'll do the half an hour lesson, like a kind of level, first lesson of the intro, but a bit more kind of descriptive because parents will sit at the back. So I'm going to set up so parents at the back, kids at the front. I'll talk obviously a bit more about the method and how we're a little bit different. Then at the end of that half an hour, the kids will be invited, if you like, to go and get some food and stuff, and then the parents, I'll then give the offer. Next step is a 5 intro. My wife then comes in with the schedule that they can book in. We have our PayPal here, so they can obviously sign up.
Yeah.
I've got a special offer, so if they sign up on the day, they'll get their first group lesson free, and they also get put into a prize draw for a guitar package. They can get the instrument. Right. So yeah, it's pretty much all kind of there. I say it's just on my mind, obviously, because it's this week. So any kind of other ideas? Would be great. Yeah, so that's kind of what.
So where have they come from? How have you picked up these 36 sign-ups so far?
36. I haven't actually done the numbers, but I think it's around about 25 to 30 have come from Facebook. So really high from Facebook. We've dropped a lot of flyers, so probably about 2,500 or 3,000 flyers to local schools. Really receptive, the schools. We last few weeks just rolled into the schools, gone to reception, just said we've got flyers, an open day, give them out, kind of thing, which worked really well. Last time we did it, I emailed the schools, and a lot didn't get back to me. And funny enough, the ones that didn't get back to me, we went in, and they were yeah, we'll do that. We'll give them into book bags. So that was one big takeaway. Don't email schools, just bombard them on the day. Go in there.
Turn up, yeah. Be real, yeah. They love
it. Yeah, exactly. The T-shirt. Say, here we are. We've got this. We've got some flyers, and we're inviting your kids to come and have a chance to, an opportunity to obviously take part.
Yeah, because schools want the kids to learn music. It's a big part of what they do. So yeah, there are some schools you do get sometimes a mixed feedback where sometimes they're a bit wary of money-hungry capitalists coming into their environment trying to sell stuff, which is, I understand, fair enough. but they realise that they want the kids to learn music, and if you're teaching music, a lot of them are very open and receptive to it. Especially if you know some of the kids at school as well. If you already teach some of the kids, which is probably the odds are. I know definitely that's what happened for me. So you walk into school. I walked in. Funny because I walked into the local school in our area. I'd never approached them before this, and I rang them about doing advertising their flyer or whatever. They said, yeah, sure, come on down. And then I went down there, and it was almost like being a rock star. I walked into school, and 3 kids who knew me straight away, David, and that's my guitar teacher, and then that's his guitar teacher. And so you had this kind of like, and the teachers are sort of, the office people were sort of looking, oh, they all know you. Yeah, I teach quite a few of these kids. So it was a very almost like warm welcome, and I think once you get a few students in the schools, and yeah, you can really make some good contacts in the schools, and that's when things often become really leveraged for you. That's where I got the viral effect from, was the schools became really aware of what I was doing and who I was, not just as a school but as a personality as well. So as you start to infiltrate the schools, then you're going to really get a lot more students signing up. So ideas. First question I would be asking is, because it sounds like you got most of the marketing and everything covered. On the day, how are you going to actually sell them? Because you do want to get them enrolled and paid. Are you all set up for that? Have you got a kind of scenario for once you've done that trial lesson for someone to say, well, okay, I like that. Where do I sign up? How do I pay? Is that going to be easy to do with so many people on the day?
Yeah. Last one we did, I think all but 2 people. I think there was 18 that signed up on the day. All went through PayPal here. And I'd sent out an email, 2 emails, like a week before, and I think it was the day before, telling them what was going to happen. Here's where I am. There's free parking. There's free food. There's free balloons. But the next step is the group, and this is what we do. We do 5-week intro first, then the group. And we got a special offer on the day, so obviously we primed them that on the day they're £59. They sign up, then they get into the free group lesson after the intro and the competition with the guitar. So they're already primed what was going to happen, and they had flyers on the wall and a big banner at the bottom of the stairs that said intro and stuff. So, last one it went quite slick. The PayPal here was one of the best things that worked so well.
And you've got some backup as well, your wife and somebody else?
Yeah, my wife's doing it. I think it works quite well with both of us. So I'm teaching, she's then bringing people in. She then ambushes them at the end. I give the sales speech, and then she comes in the back door, and I'm like, there's my wife, she's got the schedule. Have a look at what times kind of work for you.
Yeah. It sounds great. It sounds like you got it really well organised. To make the most out of it, I would do things like video it if you can. If you can have a video camera set up somewhere, even if it's for your own sake, to look back at it and get a feel for some of the things that you could improve on. Things you could take some shots if you want to get really good about it. You could do things like take pictures of kids with guitars and give them the photo. There are lots of little things you can do. It depends on how far you want to take it. But to me, it really sounds like you got it sorted. I don't think I would do much more than what you've got done. So maybe Ben, have you got any ideas? Any thoughts? Questions? Is he there?
Nope.
No. Okay. Cool. Because Paul, you're probably one of the most kind of advanced guys in this area of promotion and marketing, and so I know you've done a lot of different things. So, Bob, have you got any ideas? I know you've been in business for a long time, and you've got a big history. Any ideas?
No, I think you've got everything covered. I'm very impressed about going into the schools. That's a really good, slick move. So, did you say you were able to hang up banners or something, or flyers or something in the school?
Yeah.
Were you able to do? Yeah. How many schools did you do?
We've done. I have got stats. I think about 15, 20. So we've got.
Schools.
Yeah. And some of the schools around here have got 500-600 kids. We go in with flyers banded up into packs of 30, so it's kind of 30 generally in the class, and just we've got this event. How many classes you got? We put them out in book bags. Some just put them on reception, but a lot of them did say take a big bulk. So yeah, so give out to the kids.
That's fantastic. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it worked really well. Really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing we did as well.
Sorry, go on. You go.
I was just going to say, we kind of did 2 for 1. We went in there and said, here's some flyers for the day. Also, can we get an email address to contact the woman that's in charge, or the person who's in charge of events, who's in charge of your Christmas bazaar or your your Mayfair and all those kind of summer fetes and stuff. If they denied us the flyers, we then went straight in with that kind of as a backup. We kind of said both really. We've kind of got. So yeah, definitely.
Did you? Are you aware of what schools your students go to? Do you keep those stats?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
One of them actually wrote the father of one of the girls I teach. He wrote a letter to the headmaster saying about my school, and that it was a great opportunity for the kids at his school or her school to come and try it. And I have this open day coming up. This was the last one, and so I thought that was good. I might try and encourage obviously that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. You're really making inroads. Yeah, it comes back to you as the kind of the teacher and the the entrepreneur, the front guy in your business, the principal, if you like, of your school. Because when you come across as the kind of person that they want to recommend, it's just going to happen more. And I think one of the things I guess I did was that although I never pushed it, I don't push the idea of can you tell everyone at your school how good our school is, or can you tell all your friends to come because we're so good. I never pushed that line, but what I would do would ask questions about what school do you go to? Okay, do you have a guitar program there? Who what music programs do you? Who's the music teacher? I would inquire and get to know, and I would end up knowing most of my students' teachers, like who their actual music teachers were, or if they're in primary school, as we call it, what their actual teacher's name was. I would get to know who the principal was, whether they had a school band, how big the band was, what kind of instruments, whether they allowed guitar, etc. So I think as you get to know more about them and you talk more about them, then you find opportunities. And I think that's really what it's just about, is just looking for those opportunities. Because sometimes what you'll do is, example, just one that comes to mind. One student I asked about what school do you go to, and the school, this was the school's called Innerborough, and I said, okay, great, because I'd heard of it before and knew about it a bit, and I said, I heard they have a good music program, and she said, yeah, and my teacher's Mr. Such and Such. Okay, great, yeah, I've heard about that teacher. I've heard that he's really good and runs a great music program there. Yeah, and said, yeah, and then so she ended up talking to her teacher, who then wanted to meet me. So I ended up going to the school and meeting him, and that way I got to know him, and then he obviously would endorse me and recommend students to me because I was doing the same, and they like that. A lot of school teachers really like when you, as a local music teacher and a private music teacher, endorse them and sing their praises, because for them, a lot of them, that's what it's important to them, is the praise. Because they're not like us where they're in business. It's not about money. It's often about recognition and being, getting the recognition from peers as well about what they're doing. And if you can do that, you'll often make some good contacts through the schools. You can even do things for the schools. Find out where you can maybe play in their school band one night, or just help out the band. Help out with the rehearsal. You never know. If you just talk about, I did quite a few exams with students where I would be the backup for them, or do their second part for their exams at school, their high school certificates and things like that. So the more you can sort of get into the schools in that way, I call it kind of stealth, approach, rather than knocking on the door. You can actually get in through students you already have and through contacts that you already have in the schools, and you really start to become known in your area as somebody that they want to recommend. And I can remember at my school, I don't know if you guys had it, but I distinctly remember when I was at school, there was a couple of teachers in the area that everybody knew. And I'm talking private teachers, like a private guitar teacher, a private drum teacher. There was a couple that everybody knew, whether, I can't remember whether it's the teacher or the other students or whatever, but there was always a few private teachers outside the school that we all knew about, that we all sort of said, that's the teacher to go to. You want to become that teacher. Okay, cool. So I guess the only thing on the open day there really is what I call the B plan, and that is that for those students who don't book in, who don't get on the day, try and see what you can do with them. In other words, is there another offer that they would like? Is there something that was missing in your presentation? Just make sure you split them into the two, which I know you'll do anyway, but just have that B list, your A list to the people who paid, your B list to the people who didn't pay, and find out what it is that perhaps was missing that they were looking for on the day. That's really the only thing I can add, Paul. Sounds great. Sounds like it's going to be a huge success.
Well, brilliant, thank you.
Okay, so any other final comments, questions? I think we covered some good topics. All good? All
good.
Quiet out there? All right. Excellent, guys. How's the UK recovering from the loss of the rugby? Is that going down pretty hard?
We were playing a gig that night.
Playing a gig, were you?
I was quite glad that it wasn't a particularly exciting finish. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
right, definitely lost at half time. Let's start playing now then.
Yeah. Time for the music.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, it's been a very rugby thing here. I don't know if you guys probably don't see a lot of rugby, but here it's big rugby league country, and yeah, we had a great grand final, and the Australians winning that game in the rugby. So yeah, it's been a big week for us. So. All right, guys, I shall leave you to it, and yeah, I'm here on Wednesday if you want to drop in, any of you, and yeah, and next week this time there won't be a hangout. Just to keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
See you on Wednesday, Dave. See you later, Paul. See you later.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.